Hey, Anthem House. My name is Kristen. We are right in the middle of a God of Miracles series and just kind of talking about the miraculous of Jesus and the life that he lived. And one of the cool things about Jesus is the fact that when he left, he made sure to remind his disciples that things were only just getting started, that they would actually go on to do more than they even witnessed him doing. And so I want to hang out with that word disciple, because here's these guys and they followed Jesus, and because of their time with Jesus, they were empowered by him to do what he did, to participate in the miraculous, to have a hand in the beginning of the gospel movement. But Jesus says it's only just getting started. And the word disciple is actually used 261 times throughout the New Testament and the book of Acts. And the fact that it jumps from the Gospels into the Acts of the Apostles shows us that the word disciple is not just for Jesus' disciples. It's not just for those people that had access to him and were released by him. Actually, because the word carries over into the book of Acts and into the early church and the beginning of the gospel movement after Jesus' death and resurrection, we see that the word disciple is actually not just the calling to follow Jesus and to minister with him and to walk closely behind him, mimicking what he does, but the call to follow the community of Jesus, to come into a community, to learn and mimic what the people ahead of you are doing, and then to invite others into it. Discipleship is just bringing people in to what we're already doing as the gospel family, reproducing in them what we have produced in ourselves from following the people in front of us, and reproducing in them until they get to a level where they can then begin to reproduce it in others. So it kind of works like this. I remember, I think I was 19 when I first felt like the Lord put a picture in my head of me on a stage, and I thought, there is no way I would ever do that. There's not a chance. I'm not getting up there. I'm not talking about Jesus. There's not a chance I would ever get on a stage to do any of that. And I was terrified because it was so far out of my comfort zone, but also so far out of my competency. I had no idea. I didn't know what went into writing a talk. I didn't know what went into delivering a talk. I had no idea. I had never even thought about it. And because I was in a discipling community, I had a safe place to share this vision that God put on my heart. I went to James and West, where I was an intern at the church that I had grown up in. James and West James was the youth pastor, Wes was another intern, and so I had a safe place to go and tell someone something that God had kind of just dropped into my head. And I said, this might sound crazy, guys, but this is what I'm feeling, and it terrifies me. And you know what they didn't do? They didn't hand me all of their textbooks, because they've been in Bible college for 3 years at this point, and this is what they're doing. They're teaching and they're preaching and they're pastors, and they write sermons and deliver talks on a daily, weekly basis. And they didn't just hand me all of their theology books and say, go figure it out yourself. They actually said, that sounds awesome. If God's called you to that, then we want to empower you to do that. And Wes would sit with me for hours and teach me what it meant to write a talk, how to research something, how to get into commentaries. He taught me how to use my first commentary. And then the hardest part of it all was after I felt like I had this talk developed with this outline or whatever, they would take me into the little chapel that sat inside of our church right by our offices. And the two of them would sit in the chairs in the front row. They'd put me up in the front and they would say, all right, deliver it to us. And it was the most nerve-wracking thing ever, because there's just two people in the room. And so I would fumble my way through delivering this talk, and they, with the most love possible, would sit there after it was over, pull me in close, tell me all of the things I did great, and then tell me all of the things that I could work on, where I needed to slow down, where I needed to pause, where I needed to take a step outside of the little box that I had put myself in. I remember when we first started teaching, I would never use my hands. I wouldn't get them outside of my body. And now, if you ever see anything, I can't get them inside of my body while I'm teaching now. But hours and hours and hours of time they spent handing down to me what someone had handed to them. And basically, what they did for me is they helped me reach my fuller potential, because discipleship is about empowering others to reach their fullest potential in the promises that God has given them. And I'm just tempted to think that if we all, we're all good at something different, and when we use the gospel to its fullest, it's about recognizing that we live in community, and there are people in our community that don't know what we know. And vice versa, there's people in our community that know what we don't know. And like if we were willing to invite people into relationships and to share what we have and to glean what we can, then this whole discipleship movement stops us from needing to buy how-to books. Like I wouldn't have to buy WordPress for Dummies to try to figure out a blog if I had someone in front of me that knew how to disciple me in blogging, because we would just naturally put ourselves next to the people that are doing what we can't do, and we would become learners and studiers of what they're doing, and they hand down the task to us until we're competent. Then what do? With the competency, I then turn around and invest it in others behind me. I can't tell you how many students I have sat with that have come to me and said, hey, I feel like I want to be a pastor. I feel like I want to teach. Will you teach me how to write a talk? And how many times I've done exactly what James and Wes did for me. I remember Deja at the student union telling me she wanted to deliver a talk to the middle school kids. And so we made time to put her on the schedule. And 2 weeks before she was supposed to be on the stage, I sat down with her, helped her develop her talk. About midway through that week, when she had a crisis breakout panic moment of, I can't do this, I don't know what I'm doing, I calmed her down. I told her that's to be expected. Here's what happened to me when I was right where you are. And then we made our ways into the auditorium, and where did I sit? In that front seat as she got on the stage and she delivered the message in the same way that I did it 10, 15 years before. And then I got to put her on that stage, and she got to teach her little heart out to those middle schoolers that weekend. And it was just like, oh my gosh, that's a disciple. And now Deja has been through something. And as she continues to grow in her competency toward teaching, she will have something to give on the other side. We are reproduced in to then reproduce in others. And so I just wanted to take a minute this week and ask you to think about the environment around you, the people that you live life with, your kids, your family, your spouse, your small group, your missional community, your huddle, the people that you work with, the people that are right next door to you. What is it that you have that some of them might benefit from? And also, what is it that they have that you might benefit from? Who can you pull in and reproduce in? And where can you go to be reproduced in? Those are my questions for you this week. I would love to see you respond with an answer underneath this video blog, or maybe even just write them down in your journal. Like if a name came to your mind of someone that you can reproduce something in, write that name down and start praying over that person. And maybe there's an ask. Like the gospel is always about invitation. Like maybe there's an opportunity for you to invite that person into a discipling relationship. And if there's a name of a person that you thought might be able to invest in you, or a place where you might be able to go to get a discipling investment towards something, and you wrote a name down there, start praying about that too, because you might just have to put yourself out there and ask someone to give you what they have. Every time in my life I feel like the Lord's calling me into a new thing, my question to him is always, who's the person? Who's the person that's going to teach me to do what I don't know how to do? Because Lord, I'll follow you anywhere. But I know that you're going to do it through discipleship. So help me meet the person that has what you're asking me to have so that I can learn from them how to access it. And he never fails. Every single time there's been a person and there's been a connection. So start thinking about those people and maybe even make a move towards them today, this week, maybe next week. All right, have a good one. I'll talk to you later. Bye.